Hey everyone, I think we'll get started. I'll see if people trickle in. I'm Nola Solomon, VP of Global Programmatic and Strategic Partnerships at Dailymotion. Dailymotion is a global video hosting platform. We work with premium publishers that use our proprietary video player to upload their content, which lives on dailymotion.com as well as on their sites. We hit about 300 million unique users monthly. Today I'm going to talk about hyper-personalization and viewer experience across platforms and devices. A couple things before I move into the slides is what I'm going to actually talk about today. So I'm going to talk about the main types of targeting and how we can think about them in an ideal scenario, but also some of the challenges that come with them. I'm going to talk about OTT specifically, as I think that's going to be very relevant for a lot of you in the room. And we're going to talk about some other solutions that are coming up for challenges such as frequency capping as well. So starting with the basics, what is personalized advertising? It's the advertiser's ability to track users and deliver relevant, timely, and engaging messages at the right time to the right person in the right place. This is really important when you're thinking about how do you get a user to really engage with your ad. The main types of targeting that I'm going to talk about are contextual targeting and audience-based targeting. The difference is that contextual targeting really takes into account only what is going on the page, the context. It could be the content, it could also be the skew of the page, whether it's positive or negative kind of sentiment. Audience targeting is based around data. It's based upon what you know about the user through deterministic user profiles, through probabilistic data sets as well. And both of these play into hyper-personalization and how an advertiser can use them effectively to target users. Here's an example of contextual targeting by itself. I, Nola, am watching the top 10 plays of the day on Dailymotion.com, so this is basketball, and it's identified that I'm watching basketball content, so I get served an ad for Nike shoes. However, this is a men's shoe, and I'm female, so it's not really relevant for me at all. So it's not really a great example of good targeting. In this next example, this is audience-based targeting only. I'm watching the same basketball plays, and I get targeted for a lipstick. So the advertiser was able to identify that I was female, that I was within a certain age range, and targeted me with this lipstick. Well, it's a really nice lipstick, and any other day I might be really interested in buying it. Right now I'm watching sports. I'm not thinking about beauty, so the context isn't right for me right now to buy this lipstick. So this is also not particularly well targeted. This next example brings both together. So I'm watching the same content, and I get targeted with a Nike sports top. This is relevant because it's relevant to the content of what I'm watching at the moment, and it's also relevant to my gender, my age range, and my probable interests. Or maybe they know actually more about me, and we'll get into that later. And this is a great example of how using both together can result in a really well-targeted ad that most likely will result in positive user engagement and potentially a conversion. Now, is personalized good or is it creepy? There's a lot of stuff going around, a lot of data that gets collected. Can I take a poll of the room on who thinks it's good? All right, some maybes. Who thinks it's creepy? All right, kind of split, interesting. So the spoiler is that it can be both, as we can see from the data in this room by itself. This next slide is going to show a short video clip of some interviews around what people think about personalization in advertising.
The best experience I had was when I got pregnant, that all across devices I got ads for baby products. So I basically figured out what I needed to buy based on those ads.
I love targeted Instagram ads for like clothes, for things for the apartment, furniture, all of that kind of stuff. I always go through stuff before.
The best ad experience, for example, would be I find my HBO, right? So the way they do the promos for the new shows, right? It's never like 2 minutes long. It doesn't give away a lot. The messaging is to the point. It is short, but it is still super engaging that it actually gets you excited about the content, even though you're technically waiting for over 6 months. Let's say last season of Game of Thrones, right?
Actually, one time I booked like holidays to go skiing with some friends. And what was funny is that for the whole week, following week, I got ads from Skin all the time, and it was really not relevant.
The worst ad experience I had, or I constantly have, is when I watch news on connected TV that I only get ads for prescription drugs that are for people 70 years and older.
When my kids, they're on their iPads, and if they're watching, let's say, like Peppa Pig or something, the pre-roll that comes in before Peppa Pig could be a trailer for a horror movie, which is, again, I don't know why that would be acceptable. That is definitely not acceptable, and that's exceptionally creepy.
The only thing that's slightly creepy is when you get targeted ads that you know you haven't even searched, that you've spoken about, and you can tell your phone's listening to it. That's like the creepiest for me. And I was telling my mum about it, and it blew her mind. She was like, "What do you mean they're listening?"
There's nothing about me that would make me look this up. It was just some random conversation I was in, and now I'm getting an ad for it. My phone has to be listening to me. There's no way they weren't listening to me.
Once we take down the barrier and have a name associated to the user, I think that is the point of no return, where the advertising has gone too far.
Obviously, I want it to be relevant, but there's just a point where it's like you don't tell me how much you know. It's like ignorance is bliss, I guess.
No, I find that a little bit creepy. It's my data. I'd rather have been somewhat, I feel like they know enough about me already, outside of me going and say, yes, please track me even more than you are already. So no.
I would definitely share my data because I'm gonna get ads regardless, so I rather them be relevant.
If I'm on a website, like, what do I care if, like, I want them to know which articles I've been reading or which videos I've been watching, which just improves the experience for me.
There were quite a diverse range of answers, but users that did enjoy the personalization found it useful because they were relevant and engaging ads, such as the viewer who was able to buy products, baby products that she was looking for, and maybe discover things that she didn't know she needed in order to be a new mother. Some of the kind of counters to that were when things got too personalized, when they felt that they didn't have any privacy anymore. And that was where users felt that ad personalization became creepy. So in the case of your phone listening to you, there was a viewer that was talking about that. I personally had this experience last week where I was on the phone talking to my friend about cauliflower pizza crust, and then he texted me a few hours later telling me that he got retargeted with an ad for cauliflower pizza crust. There was never any text about it. It was entirely verbal. So it's really kind of fine line between creepy there and useful and relevant. But at the end of the day, most users are going to be willing to share their data because they're going to get ads that are relevant for them and ads that are interesting for them. I personally use my data in order to find products that I'm interested in, let it be, and see how I get retargeted with discounts. So there are some positives to it. This next example is from a film you guys have probably seen, 2002 Minority Report with Tom Cruise, and it's going to be another example of when ad personalization goes a little bit too far.
A road diverges in the desert. Lexus. The road you're on, John Anderton, is the one less traveled. Make sure you're driving a Lexus.
Good evening, John Anderton.
We are John Anderton.
One Night Stands provides gourmet cuisine.
John Anderton. Escape from it all, Harrison. Just get away, John Anderton. Forget your past.
Hello, Mr. Yakamoto. Welcome back to the Gap. How those assorted tank tops work out for you?
Mr. Yakamoto.
Hey, Miss Belfort, did you come back for another pair of those chamois lace-ups?
That in this clip, The ads get a little too personalized, it gets a little creepy, it's really overwhelming. It's constant targeting and it's constant, really hyper-targeted ads. Obviously, this is a fictitious, dystopian, futuristic movie, but we're not too far away from that, honestly. What the real crux of it is that the advertisers, when thinking about personalization with advertising, need to be really thinking about what is the perceived value for the user in order to target them with this ad. As we saw from the video clips and your own experiences, there's a lot of benefits to ad personalization. There's benefits for the user. They're able to find ads that are relevant and engaging for them. That means that they're going to engage with the ads more. They're going to potentially buy whatever product it is you're selling. This has a positive impact for advertisers because it's going to positively impact ROI. It's going to mean that there's better brand recall and users are going to think positively about their brand. And somebody who's not mentioned on this slide, but definitely benefits as well, is the publisher. When a user's on their site and they're getting targeted ads that make sense, that aren't overwhelming and aren't overly personalized, then they are going to have a better user experience on that publisher's site. The publisher will get paid a better CPM, and everyone's happy. I want to talk a little bit about OTT. I promised I would in the beginning, and personalization within this very challenging format. I'm going to start with a fairly simple example and walk you guys through some of the positives and challenges of personalized targeting on OTT. So in this scenario, we have Connie, and we're going to try to target her. She is 28, she is female, she's a travel enthusiast, she owns a connected television device, and she streams advertising video on demand whenever she feels like it. She doesn't pay for subscription. If you're an advertiser and you want to target Connie, you need to identify who's watching the connected television device. And to do that, you utilize a tool called an identity graph. An identity graph houses all sorts of information about users and creates user profiles. It's completely anonymous, it's totally PII, but it's able to help you guys identify who the user is, whether they're male or female, what age range they fall under, other information you might know about their behaviors, or credit card information, any kind of information you can get. There's so much data out there. And the identity graph will take it all together to create a user profile that you'll use to target. So in this case, we've identified who Connie is. She's female, she's between 25 to 35 years old, and she's interested in travel. So we need to show her the right ad. Maybe there is a travel agency that's trying to get clients to book a trip to Fiji. This could be a really perfect opportunity for them to target Connie. So she's watching a connected television device, which means that the advertiser needs to think about what device the user's on at the moment. This is a really engaging device because it's large screen, it's highly viewable, and usually really good completion rates. You can't click out of it. You can't really engage with it the same way you can with other devices. So they're going to target Connie with a beautiful image of a beach in Fiji to try to entice her to go there. In fact, they're sort of bringing her there because of the size of the screen. And they really get the chance to be creative because of the way that this unit allows for them to really immerse the user in the advertising experience. Next is leveraging other touch points. You've shown Connie this beautiful beach, and you want her to come buy a trip with your agency to go to Fiji. You got to actually get her to a place where she can buy that. So you got to think about how do you target her across her other devices, because you just showed her the ad on connected television. So you go back to your trusty identity graph, which also has cross-device solutions to it, where it's mapped all of the different devices that it knows are Connie's, or at least it thinks it knows are Connie's. And you're able then to target her with an ad, potentially on her mobile phone. If she's sitting on her couch with her phone, that's connected to the same IP, because it's connected to the same Wi-Fi as her connected television device. So you retarget her. You retarget her with a consistent message from the original message. You leverage sequential advertising to continue to tell the story and show her the next iteration of what her trip could look like. And then you give her a call to action, what it is that you want her to do. It could be signing up for a newsletter. It could be booking this trip to Fiji. Our end results: user satisfaction and conversion. Connie has an amazing time at the beach. So this is great. This is an example of where it works really well. But the problem is, this is the ideal scenario, right? We all know that it's not quite this simple most of the time. And why is that? It's because connected television and usually OTT streaming is done at a household level, not at a individual user level. So if we're looking at the scenario where Connie actually lives with roommates, John and Sarah, they're all about the same age, but they have very different interests, and obviously they're not of the same gender, all of them. So how do you know who's actually watching the connected television device at the time that you want to serve the ad? So that's the challenge. Who is watching? In this scenario, Connie is watching, but she's using Sarah's streaming service, and all three roommates are home, and all their other devices are connected to the same Wi-Fi. So you actually have a really hard time to identify that it's Connie that's watching the content. And therefore, you might target her using the data from Sarah's streaming login with an ad for sports, but Connie's not interested in sports, she's interested in travel. So this is one of the major challenges of OTT. One of the other challenges that I'm going to talk about is completely unrelated to this fictitious scenario of Connie and Sarah and John in their lovely roommate pad, but is the concept of frequency capping, which we are all very familiar with across mobile and desktop, but is a real challenge on OTT. The reasons for this is a lack of universal identifier across all the different disparate OTT systems. It's poor communication between ad servers and supply-side platforms used by publishers. The amount of pipes that one user's impression can go through on an OTT platform to get served an ad is staggering. These systems do not talk to each other very well. And data obfuscation. So as publishers are moving into the digital TV space, their audiences are highly protected. They protect them by obfuscating this data. And this does not help the industry initiative for frequency capping and ensuring that what you guys have all probably experienced, you don't get served the same ad 2 times in a row, 3 times in a row, in the same ad pod, every other ad break. It's really a big problem on OTT. The good news is that there are solutions, and it's a question of when, not if. So the IAB Tech Lab released an identifier for advertising, the IFA, on OTT, which is made up of 3 components: the IFA itself, the IFA type, which is the source of the IFA, and the tracking, the limited ad tracking, which is LAT, which is essentially the user's ability to allow to be tracked or not be tracked. In an age of privacy and GDPR that we've now entered, this is really important as well. And the concept of this is to help create a system that we use very much on desktop and web with cookies, and on mobile with device IDs, Android and iOS, since there's more unified IDs there, to kind of replicate that for OTT through the IFA and deliver targeted ads and control frequency capping across all these disparate systems. There's some other cool initiatives that are not really related to OTT, but I thought are really relevant to talk about because they are tied to how can we think about personalizing ads across different devices to target the user no matter where they are. 2 of those are unified login, so single sign-on for publishers, and unified ID. These are both here to combat the walled gardens who have so much first-party data on users. Because everyone uses their services and you need to sign up and you need to give your information in order to use their services, it's really hard for other publishers and everyone else in the industry to compete with that kind of first-party data at scale. So these are 2 solutions that have been put into place or that are being worked on to address this problem. The first is the single sign-on. So it's a single sign-on for multiple consortium of publishers. This has really started in France and Germany mainly, where they share a sign-on and they're able to share first-party data across all of their publisher information. And that's really helpful for them to curate a first-party data marketplace for themselves and receive better advertising because of that. The next is unified ID. There are a number of different initiatives out there. And this is the idea of being able to have a standardized user ID across the web that will improve targeting and frequency capping. It's also going to reduce latency and cookie loss. So you won't actually need a cookie sync with everybody because you're using the same identifier. Everyone's using the same identifier. And publisher sites won't be as slow because they won't have to put so many syncs going on the page at the same time. So the takeaways from what we just discussed is that contextual and audience-based targeting are more effective when they're used together. Ad personalization needs to have user experience at the center. Be relevant, be creative, and always think about how you're providing value. And the third is that OTT still presents a huge challenge for hyper-personalization. We have to think about it at a household level, but how do we start thinking about it at the user level as well? The industry needs to work together to tackle this problem. Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you guys very much.